What's up, guys? We are back with Saturday college basketball action here on December 14th. We're breaking down 15 games on this crowded slate. We'll be looking at leans against the spread and on the over-under here as lots of teams start to get into their conference schedules. So let's get into it. Also, huge announcement. We have a second channel called More Stump the Spread where we'll be posting our breakdown of the NBA Cup semifinals. We are having leans on the over-under and, player props, all that kind of stuff. If you want to check that out, there will be a link at the end of this video and also in the video description. If you want to win all of your Saturday bets, hit that like button. It's good luck and really helps the video get promoted out there. Obviously, I would love if you would subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and if you are a really big time supporter, you can sign up for a channel membership to get early access to all of my NFL and college football videos, and you also get your name up on screen in every video just like right now. I really appreciate everyone watching this video, and big shout out to the channel members. All of our videos, guys, are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. We have a whole team of professional cappers over there who are putting in the work every single day, covering all the major sports with the NFL, college football, NCAA basketball, NBA, UFC, and the NHL all going on right now. It's a great time to sign up for maximum bang for your buck. Just type Stump the Spread into your search engine of choice, and you can easily view our free picks, new ones posted daily, and you can join our free email list to get updates on results and free picks straight to your inbox. Also, guys, there's a link to Stump the Spread in the description on this video. Let me know in the comments any bets you're looking at today, and I will give you my best advice on all of them. I personally respond to every single comment every day, and I'm more than happy to get back to you. As always, our favorite picks will be in the pinned comment down below. Now let's get into our first game of the day. We've got Memphis taking on number 16 Clemson. Memphis comes into this game, guys. They have had a very tumultuous start to their season. Getting off to a good start there with wins over Mizzou and UNLV. They knocked off then number 2 UConn. They beat Michigan State. Then they got blown away by Auburn. They won against LT. And then their last time out, guys, a tough loss, losing straight up there against Arkansas State. So, yeah, Memphis been pretty much all over the map. Obviously, they're in a big bounce back spot here coming off of that tough loss against Arkansas State. The Red Wolves really, Memphis just couldn't get things figured out. They lost that game despite shooting 31% from three, but they only shot 35.6% from the field. So that's going to make things a little bit rough. They got out-rebounded in the game. They had no answer really for Joseph Pinion, who had a hell of a night out there. And, yeah, just a bad night out there for the Memphis Tigers, losing, despite a huge game from PJ Haggerty, guys. 29 points from him. He was 8 of 15 from the field, 11 of 13 from the free throw line, but it just was not enough in the end. We saw good stuff from the bench and just the contributions across the board from Memphis, but it just wasn't enough there in the end to get the job done. So, like I said, the Tigers clearly in a bounce back spot for this one. Over the course of the season, they've looked very, very good in terms of their offensive production, easily in the top 90 in the NCAA. Rebounding could be a little bit suspect, but this is a very talented team. I think we can expect them to pick it up here, going on the road to take on a ranked opponent here in the Clemson Tigers, who are 9-1 on the season. That only loss this year coming against Boise State. Kind of a lopsided loss too, so congratulations to Boise. Definitely an off night there for Clemson. Their last time out, we saw the Tigers take down Miami 65-55. They've got a great win over number 4 Kentucky earlier this season. A nice win there against Penn State. They've been doing a lot of positive things this season, and yeah, that's why they're all the way up to ranked 16th in the nation, guys. We've seen good stuff from them across the board. They're a very solid team. The offensive numbers aren't necessarily eye-popping, but they're very good defensively. They're a decent rebounding team as well. In that 65-55 win there against the Miami Hurricanes, not like Miami's having a great season, guys, but we did like what we saw from Clemson. They shot 33% from three-point range. They ended up, keeping things basically even there on the boards. Pretty good stuff. We had 3 starters scoring double figures there. The bench production was a little bit lacking, so that's definitely something of a concern here for Clemson, especially going against a Memphis team that has some, pretty reasonable, assets there coming off of the bench. So looking at the numbers for this game, Clemson 6.5-point favorites here playing at home. We've got a total of 144.5. Memphis 6-3 against the spread this season. They are 6-3 to the over. Clemson 6-4 against the spread this year, and they are 6-4 to the under. Guys, I think this is a spot we want to be backing the road team here. I know that probably doesn't feel amazing necessarily, but Memphis in a huge bounce back spot after a very bad game. They've shown they can play with pretty much anyone in the country with those wins over UConn and, I guess that win over Michigan State is nice. They didn't keep things close against Auburn, but this is a very, very talented team. I think Clemson might be getting a little bit too much respect from the odds makers in this spot, and they're in a little bit of a letdown spot with wins against Kentucky and Miami in their last 2, so maybe they drop the ball here a little bit before they go on the road to take on South Carolina, but I like the Memphis Tigers here getting 6.5 points in this game. Next up, guys, we're looking at the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're taking on the number 2 Auburn Tigers. Ohio State comes into this game 6-3 on the season, fresh off of an 80-66 blowout win there over Rutgers. So that had to feel pretty good after losing 2 in a row. I mean, losing against Pitt and Maryland, not the worst losses in the world. I mean, you probably don't want to be dropping 2 games in a row at any point in the college basketball season, but that's going to happen. You're playing in the Big Ten. You're playing against tough opponents in the non-conference schedule, like Ohio State not taking it easy on themselves. I mean, losses against Texas A&M, Maryland, and Pitt this year doesn't look terrible, but also doesn't look amazing. They're about to have a huge test in this one as they take on Auburn, so we'll see if they can keep it rolling. I mean, in that game they had against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, loved pretty much everything we saw from Ohio State. We had 2 guys there. Devin Royal scored 22 points. We saw Bruce Thornton also scored 22 points, so the starting lineup absolutely cruising, and they put up 80 points in this game despite shooting only 6 of 18 there from 3-point range. Like, 6 made threes, you still scored 80 points. Like, that's a pretty nice outing. They had a nice edge there on the boards, and all of that happening against a pretty competent Rutgers team. So yeah, gotta love what we're seeing from Ohio State right now. I mean, over the course of the season, their numbers for the year, very, very good offensively, a solid defensive team as well. The rebounding numbers, kind of middle of the road, but we're liking what we're seeing from Ohio State. So we'll see what they can do here going on the road to take on the Auburn Tigers. Obviously, a pretty tough opponent there to face. This game is being played there in Atlanta, Georgia. So, maybe not the easiest place there for Ohio State to be playing, maybe a little bit more Auburn friendly. Auburn's coming into this game fresh off a bounce back win against Richmond. Obviously, that was a cupcake win for them after a very tough 84-78 loss against the Duke Blue Devils. So yeah, Auburn definitely in a little bit of a bounce back spot, still getting plenty of respect here, ranked number 2 in the nation. They've got a nice win against Houston early in the year, a win against Iowa State, a win against North Carolina, a nice win against Memphis as well, and then losing against Duke. So time for them to kind of continue this bounce back here against a very solid opponent. We're not going to look at that Richmond game. We don't really care what they were doing in that one, but against Duke, we did see some positive things there for Auburn. I mean, 20 points there from Johnny Broome. He's a monster, obviously, and as a team, they shot 40% from 3-point range, which kind of makes the loss even more concerning, although they did allow Duke to shoot just over 40% from 3. So yeah, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Both teams shot the ball really well. Kind of came down to a few possessions late in the game, and they couldn't get the job done. They were playing at Cameron Indoor, so that's a little bit tough. But looking at the season-long numbers for Auburn, they are elite, as you would expect, one of the best offensive teams, rebounding teams, and defensive teams in the nation. So looking at the numbers for this one, we see Auburn, they are minus 11.5. We've got a total of 151.5. Ohio State, they're 6-3 against the spread. They're 5-4 to the under. Auburn, 6-2-1 against the spread. They are 6-3 to the over. Guys, I think this is another game we're probably going to see Auburn cruise, and I think Ohio State's just going to be a little bit outclassed here. They're not going to be really playing in a very comfortable environment for them, and I just don't think they're going to have a great time. Obviously, taking double-digit favorites here doesn't feel amazing, but I do think this is a spot you're probably going to want to be on the Auburn Tigers way more than you're going to want to be on those Ohio State Buckeyes. Next on the docket, we're looking at the Xavier Musketeers. They're going on the road in this one to take on the Cincinnati Bearcats, who are now ranked 22nd in the nation. Xavier comes into this game. They've had a good start to their season, 8-2 overall. A loss against Michigan doesn't look too bad. That loss against TCU maybe doesn't look incredible, but they've played some pretty good ball. They had a huge bounce back performance, scoring 119 points against lowly Morgan State. They've got quite a tough schedule over their next 3 games, guys. They're playing Cincinnati, UConn, and Marquette. So yeah, a murderer's row of opponents there. So we'll see if they can keep this good thing rolling. I mean, in their loss against TCU, we didn't hate what we saw from Xavier. I mean, that was in the big 12, Big East battle, thing going on. And Xavier shot the ball pretty well from 3 in that game. They kept things even on the boards. It really just came down to a couple shots there late in the game. And we also saw Xavier really kind of get the shaft there. We saw TCU shoot 18 free throws, and Xavier shot only 9. 3 starters scoring double figures looks good, and some bench production. Not a ton, but some production coming off the bench there. So the Musketeers not looking awful this season. They've been a very good offensive team. The defensive numbers are still looking pretty good. Those are a little bit propped up by some, games against pretty bad opponents, but they've played pretty well. And Zach Freemantle is almost 17 points per game on nearly 57% shooting from the field, is very, very respectable. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling here, going on the road to take on the Cincinnati Bearcats, who are 7-1 this season. They haven't played, the most games this year, and when you look at their our opponents, it's a little bit lackluster, guys. I mean, looking at this, what's their best win? I guess Georgia Tech, like a blowout win over Georgia Tech. Like that's the best you can do. They lost against Villanova. Their last time out, they beat Howard 84-67. So I guess that's nice, but it feels like Cincinnati getting an awful lot of respect without having done too many big things so far this season. I mean, in their win against Howard, we saw them give up 23 points to Blake Harper. That's not a great look. 0 of those points were from the 3-point line, by the way. We saw, 3 starters scoring double figures. That's cool. Cincinnati shot 34.8% from the field, and they had a huge edge there on the board. So that's kind of how they beat the Howard Bison, guys. So yeah, that does not go down in the books as an impressive win. A win nonetheless. Losing against Villanova really isn't the greatest look either at this point, to be honest. Over the course of the season, their numbers look fine. I'm not going to say they look incredible. The assist numbers are very impressive, but I'm not really 100% sold on this Cincinnati Bearcats team, and it feels like neither are the odds makers, guys, because they're only 7.5-point favorites playing here at home. We've got a total of 144.5. Xavier, they are 4-6 against the spread. They are 8-2 this season to the under. Cincinnati, they are 4-4 against the spread. They are 6-2 this year to the under. So, guys, in terms of a side here, I am leaning a little bit towards the Xavier Musketeers getting 7.5 points on the road, but a lot of that has to do with how much I like the under in this game. We've got major trends pointing towards it. Both teams tend to play a little bit lower scoring of games, and there's some defense mixed in there. There's plenty of shot missing, and I think this is a great spot to take under 144.5. It's a play that has a great chance to end up in the pinned comment. Moving right along here, guys, we have the number 20 Wisconsin Badgers. They're going on the road in this game to take on the Butler Bulldogs. Wisconsin's 8-3 on the season, but their last 3 games have all been those losses. They've happened upon tough times. They got their season off to a pretty good start and then had a statement win there against then number 9 Arizona, a win that's looking less and less impressive as the games go on. Beating UCF is nice, Pitt is nice, but then once the games really got tough, they lost against Michigan by 3, they lost against Marquette by 14, and then they lost their last time out by 6 points against Illinois. So yeah, not the start that they had necessarily wanted here to their conference schedule, going 0-2 right out of the gate. So we'll see if they can bounce back here in that loss against Illinois. They did play a pretty decent game, but you're supposed to be trying to win these conference games, and they just came up a little bit short despite having a decent shooting night, but they got dominated there on the boards, guys. They got out-rebounded 40-29. That is certainly a concern for them, regardless of opponent pretty much. And yeah, we saw some good performances. I mean, 4 starters scoring double figures, so that's nice. The bench played relatively well. They got to the free throw line, but only made 14 out of 21 free throws. That was a big part of the reason for this loss. No major free throw disparity in this game or anything like that. Wisconsin just seems like they got a little bit outplayed by maybe a slightly undervalued Illinois team. So we'll see if they can bounce back here in terms of their season-long numbers. I mean, obviously we see, some very, very good individual stats. This is a good offensive team, 65th in the nation, but the rebounding numbers are definitely a concern, and that defense is not looking amazing. So we'll see what they can do here going on the road to take on the Butler Bulldogs, who have had a decent start to their season as well. I mean, they've lost their last 2 games, so a similar situation. One of these teams is going to continue a losing streak here, but, they played against Houston. That didn't go great. A win over Northwestern, a win over SMU, but yeah, a step-up game against Houston going pretty poorly, and then losing against North Dakota State. That is not a good loss. So definitely leaves them in something of a bounce back spot here. I mean, that loss against North Dakota State had to feel pretty freaking bad. I mean, we saw 26 points there from Pierre Brooks II. Jamil Telfort, 23 points, but none of that was enough to get them over the top. As a team, they shot 37% from the 3-point line. They kept things even on the boards, which is probably not exactly what's supposed to be happening against a team from North Dakota. But yeah, they just could not stop a couple of those North Dakota scorers out there, and it didn't go great. So could be a little tough here for them going against the Wisconsin Badgers. Over the course of the season, Butler's numbers, maybe not insane, very mediocre offensive production. The rebounding numbers are middle of the road, and those defensive numbers are not necessarily great either. So looking at the numbers, Butler getting 4.5 points at home. We've got a total of 145.5. Wisconsin 6-5 against the spread. They are 9-2 to the over. Butler 5-5 against the spread. They are 7-3 to the under. Guys, I think this is a spot we want to go with Wisconsin playing on the road. I think they're in the bigger bounce back spot. I think they'll be better here against a worse opponent, and winning this game by 5 for a team like Wisconsin is not the biggest problem. I do worry a little bit about their defense and about Butler being extra motivated here since they're on a 2-game losing streak as well, but I think this is a spot you definitely want to be on the Badgers. Next up, we're looking at the Georgetown Hoyas. They're going on the road in this one to take on the Syracuse Orange. Georgetown comes into this game fresh off a tough loss against West Virginia. That drops them to 7-2 on the season. They've had a bit of a rough time against any sort of, power conference opponents, guys. I mean, their two losses this season were against Notre Dame and West Virginia, and those were by far the best teams they've played this year. Like beating Lehigh, Fairfield, Mount St. Mary's. I'm not throwing you a parade for any of that. Beating Wagner, beating U of Albany, UMBC. Like none of these are big wins. So definitely time for Georgetown to step up here against some better competition, guys. In their 73-60 loss against West Virginia, we didn't see anything too impressive, guys. I mean, 3 starters scoring double figures, cool. I don't really care too much about that. They got out rebounded by 1. They turned the ball over 14 times. They didn't play amazing defense, and it's like they were taking on a powerhouse there in West Virginia. So a little bit concerning here from Georgetown, guys. Their season-long numbers aren't anything to write home about. Very middle of the road there on the boards. Okay assist numbers, but their offensive numbers are not great. Thomas Sorber leading the way with 15.4 points per game and nearly 60% field goal percentage, so that's nice, but not really enough, guys, if you want to be taking very seriously. They're taking on a relatively serious opponent here in the Syracuse Orange, who are 5-4 this year. They're coming off a win over U of Albany, a blowout win, so congratulations there, but they've had a little bit of a tough time in their power conference games as well. I mean, they lost against Notre Dame in a very close game, didn't keep things that close against then number 3 Tennessee, beat Cornell, but lost in a nail-biter against Texas Tech, and another nail-biter against Texas. So Syracuse just really would love to break through at some point this season, and it just has not been happening. In that win against U of Albany, they played well, but in that game against Notre Dame, obviously losing by only 5 points there in the end. Brutal stuff. They were 0 of 9 there from three-point range. Not a great shooting team. Turns out in modern basketball, guys, you're going to need some three-point shooters on your team, and that just is not something that they have. We did see Davis have 20 points there off the bench. Maybe we consider putting him in the starting lineup. Donnie Freeman had 20 points as well, but you need some guys that can knock down some threes. So looking at these season-long numbers here from Syracuse, you're not going to be, too shocked to see that their defense isn't great. Their offensive numbers are pretty good, putting up just over 80 points per game, and the rebounding numbers are kind of a function there of their pace and their size. But yeah, it's been a little bit rough here. Looking at the numbers for this game, Syracuse 1.5 point favorites here playing at home. We've got a total of 151.5. Georgetown 4-5 against the spread. They're 5-4 to the under. Syracuse 5-4 against the spread. They are 5-4 to the over. I'm going to be shading here slightly towards Syracuse here. I think there's a good chance they find a way to get the job done playing at home in this game. Georgetown hasn't impressed me against, solid competition. Neither has Syracuse. I'm leaning towards the team with home court advantage here in a matchup that I think is relatively even if you took that out. Next up, we've got the number 24 UCLA Bruins. They're going on the road in this game to take on the Arizona Wildcats, and I would say a borderline rivalry game at least. I mean, UCLA 8-1 on the season. They come into this game in a huge letdown spot after a massive win, a 73-71 win over then number 12 Oregon. They've gotten off to a good start to their season. The lone hiccup was a loss against New Mexico, which is a team that could end up being pretty decent. Obviously, taking down Oregon in their first real test of the season is nice, and getting a win against Washington, I guess I'll give them a little bit of credit for that, but in their win over number 12 Oregon, I mean, obviously a nail-biter. They won that thing by 2 points, but they shot 52.2% from three-point range. They got crushed on the boards, got out-rebounded by 10, but it doesn't matter if you're shooting the lights out. They, didn't get that many free throw attempts. They were 5 of 7 from the free throw line, but 19 points there from Eric Daly Jr. was enough to get the job done, and everybody in the starting lineup shot the ball really well from three-point range. So, yeah, great stuff there from UCLA. Over the course of the season, their numbers are pretty mediocre, to be honest. Defensively, pretty good. Those offensive numbers kind of a function of them not playing at the craziest pace, but no individual scores going particularly nuts, and those rebounding numbers also don't look great, but like I said, guys, that can be a function of their pace of play. So we'll see what they can do here, guys, going on the road to take on the Arizona Wildcats, who are 4-4 in the season, having kind of a nightmare start, but also they've been playing some pretty tough competition. That being said, they've been having a really hard time against that tough competition. So we'll see what they can do here, see if they've got a bounce back in them. They lost against Wisconsin this season, Duke, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. Their last time out was a blowout win over Southern Utah, so we don't care about that, guys. That it does not matter. In their loss against West Virginia, not nuts about what we saw from the Wildcats in that one either, guys. I mean, they shot 33% from 3, 7 of 21. They kept things close to even there on the boards, but they turned the ball over 14 times. That's not a great look. I don't know, guys. I just don't have a ton of amazing things to say about Arizona. They just have not been as advertised this year. Yeah, didn't love what we saw there from anybody really except for Caleb Love and Trey Townsend. The bench didn't look amazing. Like, this is definitely a team with lots of stuff to work on. Their season long numbers do look good. They're an elite rebounding team. They're a very good offensive team, but do they really have what it takes to hang with the big guys this season? I don't know. I guess we're going to maybe find out a little bit here in this game. The odds makers think so. They've got the Wildcats getting 3.5 points. We've got a total here of 147.5. UCLA 6-3 against the spread. They are 7-2 to the under. Arizona 3-5 against the spread. They are 6-2 to the over. I don't think I'm being sucked in here by the top 25 rating there from UCLA. I think I'm just very low on Arizona with what I've seen from them this season. Give me the Bruins here. Getting 3.5 points playing on the road doesn't seem terrible. They've been very good against the spread. I do worry about them being, in a very, very tough road environment, guys. That can be a little bit difficult, but playing against Oregon at Oregon, and they found a way. So they've played in a hostile environment. Maybe they are good to go for this one. Next up, we've got the Seton Hall Pirates. They're going on the road in this one to take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Seton Hall's 5-5 on the year coming into this game. Not a team that came into the season with a super high expectations, and I'm not going to say they've done anything too crazy this season. Their best win was against FAU, getting the win there 63-61, but FAU hasn't looked like a powerhouse necessarily. They got a win over St. Peter's to start the season. They did beat VCU, so that's a pretty solid win, but losing against Vanderbilt, Hofstra, Fordham, like, those aren't games you're supposed to lose. Losing against Monmouth, like, that's not a great loss, and losing against Oklahoma State their last time out, like, the Cowboys haven't necessarily had an amazing start to the year. So yeah, a little bit all over the place for the Seton Hall Pirates this season. I mean, 18 points in that loss from Isaiah Coleman doesn't look terrible. They shot 36.8% from 3-point range. Like, okay. They got slightly out-rebounded and, not a ton of rebounds to be had in this game, but the defense looked really, really bad there, guys. I mean, giving up 85 points, not a great look. And over the course of the season, their defense has been decent, but their offensive production is very, very lacking, guys. Only averaging 60.1 points per game. Chauncey Jenkins, 11.8 points per game. We're not going to get too excited about that. So not super high in what we're seeing from Seton Hall, guys, as they go on the road to take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, another team that's kind of been all over the place. I mean, a loss against Kennesaw State doesn't look great. Beating Notre Dame, okay, cool. But keeping things within 5 points against Alabama, that looks pretty good. They only lost by 4 against Texas A&M. They did kind of get blown out there at Ohio State, so that's not maybe the best look, but a nice bounce back their last time out, an 80-76 win there over the Penn State Nittany Lions. So Rutgers has to be a little bit happy about that. In that win, guys, we saw 24 points there from Dylan Harper. He's an absolute beast. They shot 8 of 22 from 3-point range, so that'll work. And more importantly than that, possibly, they had a massive edge there on the boards, really, really taking it to Penn State there on the glass. So that's a big, big deal. They did turn the ball over 14 times. That was a big reason this game was so close, because Penn State only turned it over 6 times. But overall, we're very, very happy with what we saw from Rutgers in their last game. Obviously, big stuff from Dylan Harper this season, averaging 23.4 points per game. They're a decent offensive team. The defense is concerning. The rebounding numbers are also not amazing. So, yeah, definitely room for improvement here for Rutgers. They come into this game 11.5-point favorites. They are, we got a total of 133.5. Seton Hall 3-7 against the spread. They are 6-4 to the under. Rutgers 4-5-1 against the spread. They are 6-4 to the over. Guys, I don't think Seton Hall has what it takes to hang with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I just don't think they're a good enough team. Rutgers has played a really, really brutal schedule so far this season. They've faced some tough opponents. And I mean, I'm not going to say they've done an amazing job necessarily, but they've done a good job. And I think that'll be good enough to get the job done here against a Seton Hall team that I'm not really expecting to have a great time playing on the road. Next up, we've got a big ESPN game, guys. We got the NC State Wolfpack going on the road to take on the number 10 Kansas Jayhawks. NC State comes into this game winners of their last 2 in a row, taking down Florida State, a solid win there, and then a very sketchy 10-point win there over Coppin State. I think that was like a 20-point spread or something like that. I can't remember. I do remember we were on Coppin State, though, and they easily covered for us in that game. Not the best stuff from the Wolfpack in there. Definitely a little bit of a letdown spot for them after that win over Florida State. They've had some struggles against the better opponents. It hasn't been like blowouts necessarily, but like losing by 4 against Texas. Like, Texas isn't great. Losing by 11 against BYU, losing by 10 against Purdue. Like, what are they going to do here against absolute monster, the previously number 1 ranked Kansas Jayhawks? I don't know, guys. It seems a little bit sketchy to me after you only put up 66 points against the, currently winless Coppin State Eagles. Yeah, that barely counts as a win there for NC State, if I'm being honest. They shot 33% from the three-point range. They had barely an edge there on the boards. Nobody really went particularly nuts out there. Marcus Hill, Dantes Styles, led the way, but really not a great game. Over the course of the season, we haven't seen anybody really emerge as the, scoring leader for this team. There's around 300th in the nation in rebounding. Just not a great season, not a great team so far, at least here for NC State, but they've got a huge chance to show some massive improvement as they go on the road here to take on the Kansas Jayhawks there in the Allen Fieldhouse. It's going to be a little bit rough, guys. The Jayhawks are actually fresh off of back-to-back losses. They lost against Creighton at Creighton. Everybody loses when they go to Creighton, especially if you're your number one team. It's just a thing. Then losing in a huge rivalry spot against Missouri, 76-67. Absolutely not a good look. So now they're down to 7-2 on the season. They've got some great wins on the resume. I mean, beating number 9 North Carolina, beating Michigan State, beating Duke. This is not a bad team, guys. They've just lost a couple games, a couple of really, really weird hiccups. I mean, in that loss against Missouri, we saw Hunter Dickinson play pretty well, 19 points from him, and on fairly efficient shooting, also 14 rebounds. But yeah, nobody was really there to back him up too well. I mean, they had a big edge there on the boards. They shot the ball relatively well from three, but Mizzou was getting all the calls. We saw Missouri shoot 31 free throws. Kansas shot only 11. So yeah, a little bit brutal there. The Jayhawks will be hoping to benefit from a little bit of home cooking in this one. They are 14.5-point favorites, which is pretty wild. But when you look at their season-long numbers, I don't know, guys. Do they deserve this much respect? They are in a bounce-back spot, so we'll have to see. Kansas, like I said, 14.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 145.5. NC State 4-6 against the spread. They are 7-3 to the under. Kansas, guys, they are 4-5 against the spread, but they are 8-1 to the under this season. This is another total spot I feel like we have to look at, guys, and we have to be looking at the under here. I mean, I think NC State definitely capable of playing a very slow pace. I don't know that that's really what Kansas wants to do, but when you've got Hunter Dickinson as your leading scorer, you don't really want to play a super high-paced game. So go ahead and give me the under 145.5 as my main lean in this game. I think, we see offense be at a premium. If you wanted to take Kansas minus 14.5, as a big bounce back play, I guess you could, but my lean in this game definitely going to be that under. Next up, guys, we got the Arizona State Sun Devils. They're going on the road in this one to take on the number 9 Florida Gators. Arizona State, guys, they come into this game fresh off of a win there over San Diego. They beat St. Mary's. They beat New Mexico. They've been playing really well lately. They haven't played the toughest schedule. That being said, they did keep things very close against Gonzaga, eventually losing that game 88-80. But yeah, beating New Mexico, that's a pretty good look. And they've got some decent wins on the resume. Not necessarily power conference wins, but still some very good stuff. In that win against San Diego, we saw the Sun Devils scored 90 points, so that's got to feel good. Not against the toughest opponent, obviously, but they shot 52% from three-point range. Definitely a team that's capable of putting up some very big offensive numbers. 80 points per game. They're a decent rebounding team, mediocre defensive team, but definitely plenty of positive things to say about Arizona State as they go on the road in this one to take on the Florida Gators, who, yeah, guys, they come into this game 9-0 on the season, fresh off of a nice win there over Virginia. They beat Virginia, Wichita State, Wake Forest, Southern Illinois, a win over Florida State, and they open their year with a win over South Florida. So, yeah, very, very good stuff for the Florida Gators so far. Really no reason to complain about that. This game is going to be played at the State Farm Arena there in Atlanta, Georgia, so not a true home game for Florida, but much, much closer to being a home game there for the Florida Gators than it is for the Arizona State Sun Devils. So, yeah, Florida in that win over Virginia, we liked what we saw out there, no doubt about it. I mean, they shot 40% from three-point range. They ended up, basically keeping things even on the boards. Walter Clayton Jr., a monster, 27 points from him. He's poised for another huge, huge season. So looking at the numbers for this game, we see Florida 7.5-point favorites. We've got a total here of 154.5. Arizona State's actually 7-2 against the spread, which is impressive. They're 6-3 to the over. Florida, though, a very solid 6-3 against the spread, and they are 5-4 to the under. Guys, I'm definitely taking the Florida Gators here. I think Arizona State's being overvalued based on their record. They have not played a very tough schedule. Their only tough opponent really was Gonzaga, and they lost that game by 8. I don't expect them to play as well as they played in this one, and I think Florida has exactly what they need to get the job done in this game. So give me the Florida Gators here at -7.5. It looks like a very good spot. Next up, guys, we're looking at the LSU Tigers. They come into this game 8-1 on the season, going on the road to take on the SMU Mustangs. We like what we saw from LSU so far this season. Their lone loss was against Pitt. Their last time out, they beat Florida State. They got a win over Northwestern State, beat UCF in an absolute thriller, 109-102. A nice win earlier this season against Kansas State as well. So very, very good stuff going on there for LSU. I mean, coming off of a win there over Florida Gulf Coast, an 80-71 win, but that's a Florida Gulf Coast Eagles team that can be a little bit spicy at times, but obviously not a game that should have been that close for LSU. They struggled a little bit defending the three-point line, only shot 30% from three themselves. They had a nice edge there on the boards. Every starter scored in double figures. They found a way there to make things happen, get the job done. They did jump out to a big early lead and just kind of took their foot off the gas there in the second half. So we're not going to hold that too much against them in a step-down game. So we'll see what they can do in this one. I mean, over the course of the season, their numbers look very respectable, a good offensive team, an elite rebounding team as well. So they'll be hoping that can carry over to this game against the SMU Mustangs, who have also gotten off to a pretty good start to their season, 8-2 overall. A loss against Butler, a loss against Mississippi State, but other than that, a clean slate here. A nice 63-51 win over Virginia their last time out. Not that Virginia is anything special, but they've done some good things there at SMU this season. Getting their ACC career here off to a 1-0 start has to feel good. Will they be able to back that up here with a win against LSU? In a non-conference game, we'll have to see, guys. Against Virginia, we saw some things that we liked for sure. Just not amazing offensive numbers necessarily, but they only shot 25% from the three-point line. Definitely a number that can improve, but they had a massive, massive edge there on the boards. They did struggle defending the three-point line, so that's something to keep in mind in this matchup at least, but we'll see what they can do here. Over the course of the season, SMU's numbers are looking very, very promising. I mean, they're 22nd in the nation in points per game, 14th in the nation in rebounding. Like, this is an SMU team that can absolutely get the job done, and the odds makers agree with that for sure. SMU 4.5 point favorites here. We've got a total of 154.5. This is a home team or home game there for SMU playing in Texas. Neither team has big against the spread trends or over under trends that we're super interested in. The Mustangs are 7-3 to the over, so maybe if you wanted to take a look at over 154.5, you could, but I'm not going to be doing that, guys. I'm going to be leaning towards the SMU Mustangs here at home. To win this game by 5 doesn't seem like a huge stretch. I am a little bit worried since I would say, LSU's maybe played a slightly tougher schedule, but I think these two teams are pretty evenly matched. That's not a huge spread. It makes me want to lean towards the home team. Next up, guys, we've got a big game. We've got the Louisville Cardinals going on the road in this one to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. Louisville comes into this game 6-4 on the season, fresh off a much-needed win there over UTEP, but it was a very, very close one. They won that game by only 3 points. That was a bounce back after losing against Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Duke. So none of those games were super close either. So definitely room for concern there for Louisville. They lost to Tennessee this season. Their lone statement win was a nice win there over then number 14 Indiana. That was a blowout win, so got to give them some credit here, but it's about to be a big, big step-up spot here, and they're playing in Rupp Arena, so could be a little bit rough in that win they had against UTEP, guys. We saw some good stuff. They shot only 17% there from three-point range, so that's a big part of why this game was so close. They really got the benefit of the whistle. 34 free throws for them, 11 free throws for UTEP. Louisville did dominate the boards, but I don't think they really played out of their minds in that game. They got kind of handed that one by the officials. This is a very good rebounding team, but other than that, no crazy numbers jumping off the page at me. And they're going to need some crazy numbers here as they go on the road to take on the number 5 Kentucky Wildcats, who are 9-1 on the season, fresh off of an 11-point win there over Colgate, but it was a bit of a letdown spot for them after a big win over Gonzaga. They won that game 90-89, so a huge, huge game there. A nice bounce back for them after a loss against Clemson. I mean, a tough Clemson team, don't get me wrong. Kentucky beat Duke earlier this season. They've had a pretty good year, on all of their games across the board, and they're 9-1 for a reason, guys. This team is definitely good. In their win against Colgate, we liked what we saw, obviously. I mean, they shot 32% from 3. They dominated the boards. They did all the things you're supposed to do. All their starters scored in double figures. So good stuff here for Kentucky. Their season-long numbers look absolutely elite. They're technically, right now, the number 1 scoring team in terms of points per game in the nation and number 10 in assists per game. So loving what we're seeing from Kentucky in this one. So are the odds makers. Kentucky's actually minus 10.5 in this game. We got a total of 158.5. Louisville 4-6 against the spread. They're 8-2 to the under. Kentucky 5-5 against the spread and 6-4-1 to the over. Guys, this is a kind of a rivalry game here. It makes me want to lean a bit towards Louisville. Don't get me wrong. It does feel a little bit sketchy, but I'm going to be riding here with the Louisville Cardinals getting 10.5 points. I know they're playing on the road. I know Kentucky's been insane, but I just think this is a spot we have to fade the public, who's all going to be on Kentucky. Give me the Louisville Cardinals here getting all of these points, at least as a small play. Next up, we've got the number 1 Tennessee Volunteers. They're taking on the Illinois Fighting Illini in this game. This game is being played at Illinois. Like, this is a true, home game there for Illinois and a road game for Tennessee, who comes in this game fresh off a nice win over Miami. They beat Syracuse. They beat Baylor. That was a very nice win, and they also beat Louisville early in the season. So Tennessee absolutely cruising, still undefeated. In that game against Miami, they did some very, very positive things, as you would expect there in the Jimmy V Classic. I mean, scoring 75 points, not that special, but shooting 40% from three-point range is very, very nice. 22 points there from Chaz Lanier. He's a monster. And, Cade Phillips and Jordan Gainey playing pretty well off the bench there. 17 points for them in limited minutes. So good stuff there. We'll see if that can continue here as they go on the road to take on the Illinois Fighting Illini, who come into this game fresh off of a big win, an 86-80 win there against the, number 20 Wisconsin Badgers. Like, a good win there for Illinois, absolutely no doubt about that. They've been playing pretty well this season, losing to Alabama and Northwestern on the year, not a bad look. Not a ton of marquee wins. I mean, I guess beating Arkansas and beating Wisconsin aren't pretty good, though. So those are wins against ranked opponents. So Illinois will definitely take that. They've been a pretty good offensive team this season. 18th in the nation right now. They're technically the number 1 rebounding per game team in the nation as well. So lots of positives here for Illinois. Looking at the numbers for this game, the Fighting Illini getting a lot of respect. They're getting 2.5 points here, facing the number 1 team in the nation. We got a total of 146.5. Tennessee, they are 7-2 against the spread. They're 5-4 to the under. Illinois, 5-4 against the spread and 5-4 to the under. This is a bit rough. These have been two very, very good teams, guys. I don't hate the under in this game, but it's a little bit too low of a number for me, so probably going to stay away from that over-under of 146.5. I do think we see Tennessee manage to maintain their spot atop college basketball right now and get the win and cover. They've only got to win this game by 3. It is going to be tough going into a very hostile environment, guys. I mean, nobody usually has a great time playing there at Miami, and this isn't a Tennessee team that's really tested playing on the road. So give me Tennessee, but it is only a very small lean in this game. Next up, guys, we got the number 6 Marquette Golden Eagles going on the road in this one to take on the Dayton Flyers. Marquette comes into this game obviously having a great start to their season, going 9-1. They've got wins over Maryland, Purdue, Georgia. They lost against Iowa State. They did lose that game by 11, but then they bounced back with a nice 14-point win there over Wisconsin. So getting ready to take on Dayton in this game. I mean, obviously playing well against Wisconsin coming in has to feel pretty good. Marquette has an absolute bona fide monster there in Cam Jones. He scored 32 points in the game, and despite him putting up all those points, guys, 4 out of the 5 starters scored in double figures, so that's very nice. They won this game comfortably despite shooting only 30% from 3. They kept things even on the boards. They only had 5 turnovers in the whole game. Like, this Marquette team is looking pretty freaking nuts here, so we'll see what they can do going on the road here. They've, gone on the road, so they are road tested. They're taking on the Dayton Flyers in this game, out there in Dayton, Ohio. Dayton playing pretty well. They've won their last 3 in a row, including that big upset blowout win there against UConn, winning that game 85-67. They did lose against Iowa State and North Carolina, but both of those games were extremely competitive. So really, everything we've seen from Dayton this season is pretty much positive. I mean, they come into this game 8-2, and those 2 losses were extremely respectable. They're top 85 in the nation in offense. They're a very good rebounding team. Their defensive numbers are good. Like, I don't have a whole lot of negative things to say about Dayton right now. I mean, they've got a decent leading scorer there in Cheeks, 16 points, almost 57% from three-point range. Like, this dude is a monster, and this team is looking very, very good. And there's a reason, guys, we see them getting only 1.5 points here playing at home against the Marquette Golden Eagles. We got a total of 151.5. Marquette 7-2-1 against the spread. Dayton 7-2 against the spread. We see Dayton, they're a big over team. They're 8-1 to the over. They score a lot of points. Marquette scores a lot of points. We've got a total here of 151.5. I'm going to be leaning towards the over in this game. In terms of a side, it's really, really tough. I'm leaning here just slightly towards, Marquette on the road since they've been tested here, but already on the road once. They failed that test, though, against Iowa State, so we'll see what happens in terms of the side, but my favorite bet in this game is definitely that over 151.5. Next on the docket, guys, we're looking at the number 8 Gonzaga Bulldogs going on the road to take on the number 18 UConn Huskies. A very, very big game out there at Madison Square Garden in New York. Crazy, going to be an insane atmosphere. Gonzaga 7-2 on the season. They're actually in a bounce back spot after a tough 90-89 loss against Kentucky. Obviously, not getting any easier of an opponent here playing against UConn. So, yeah, going to be a tough spot to bounce back in. The Zags have a nice win this season over Indiana. They did have that weird loss against West Virginia, but we're not going to hold that against them too much. Beating Arizona State, beating Baylor in an absolute blowout to start the year. Like, this Gonzaga team is absolutely no joke. Graham Ike leading the way in scoring. They're third in the nation, scoring 90 points a game. They're an elite rebounding team, an elite assist team, and their defense is very good. Like, not a whole lot of weaknesses to find here for Gonzaga. So we'll see what they can do taking on UConn, who's 7-3 on the season now. They had that very tough stretch where they lost 3 in a row, falling against Memphis by 2 points, a single-point loss against Colorado, and then a kind of blowout loss at the hands of Dayton. So seems like they're back on track now, though. They've won 3 in a row, including wins in the last 2, taking down a number 15 Baylor in a close game and beating Texas by 11. So yeah, pretty good stuff there for the Huskies. Now they get to play this game at Madison Square Garden. Definitely somewhere they should be relatively comfortable. I mean, in their win against Texas, we saw very good stuff. They shot 45% from three-point range, guys. That's pretty freaking bonkers, and they dominated the board. So they'll be hoping to run it back and do something similar in this one. The Huskies are getting 2.5 points in this game. We've got a total of 151.5. Gonzaga 6-3 against the spread. They're 7-2 to the over. UConn 5-4-1 against the spread and 5-4-1 to the over. Guys, I think this is another spot you might want to take a little bit of a look at that over, but I also think a great lean in this game is to go ahead and take the Gonzaga Bulldogs in a bounce back spot. They play a very tough non-conference schedule always. I think we see them take advantage here of a UConn team that's being a little bit overvalued, just a little bit. I mean, just taking games against common opponents into account, we saw Gonzaga blow out Baylor, and UConn really needed every bit of it to get that 4-point win. So give me the Gonzaga Bulldogs here playing at Madison Square Garden. I think they find a way to win this game by at least 3. Last but not least here, guys, we've got the Creighton Blue Jays. They're going on the road in this game to take on the number 7 Alabama Crimson Tide. Creighton comes into this game 7-3 on the season, fresh off of a win over number 1 Kansas. They beat UNLV their last time out. They've been playing really, really well. They had a 3-game losing streak as they started off playing very weak opponents, then some tough ones, losing against Nebraska, San Diego State, and Texas A&M. But then bouncing back with a win over Notre Dame, a win against number 1 Kansas, and then that blowout win their last time out over UNLV. This has been a tough Creighton team to figure out, guys. I mean, always they play much better at home than they play on the road, but my God, that was a crazy, crazy game there for them to just absolutely just knock off number 1 Kansas. So we'll see if they can keep things rolling here, but they're going to have to keep it rolling on the road, which could be a little bit tougher. I mean, we've seen very good stuff from this team in general. They're a good rebounding team. They're a good, ball movement team, all that kind of stuff. We do see Isaac's going to be out for the rest of the season there with that hip issue, so that's not helpful, but we're gonna see what goes on. We're gonna see what goes on with this team. They've shown the ability to be great and the ability to be pretty mediocre. They're going to be really, really tested here taking on Alabama. Obviously, pretty much the toughest team you could take on. And this game is happening at Tuscaloosa. Alabama comes into this game. I don't know if this counts as a letdown spot necessarily, but they are fresh off a 94-79 blowout win there over number 20 North Carolina. So, yeah, that was a bounce back after a tough loss against Oregon. We'll see what they can do in this one, guys. Alabama has lost against Purdue and Oregon this season. They've beaten Illinois, McNeese. They've beaten Houston. They beat Rutgers. And then they beat North Carolina. This is a very, very good team. Definitely worthy of at least that number 7 rating in the nation. They're the 5th highest scoring team in the nation. They're 8th in rebounding. They're way, way up there in assist numbers too. This is an absolutely elite Alabama Crimson Tide team, and that is why they are 11.5-point favorites in this game. We got a total of 164.5. Creighton's only 3-6-1 against the spread. They're 6-4 to the under. Alabama 4-5 against the spread. They are 4-4-1 to the over/under. Guys, I'm gonna go with the home team in this one. It's more points than I would like, obviously, but I think Alabama is the way better, way more complete, and way more consistent team. And Creighton playing away from home is something I'll always want to be fading. So go ahead and give me the Alabama Crimson Tide here at -11.5. Probably too many points to go in the pinned comment, but definitely a spot that I am a fan of. That's all the games we have for today, guys. Hit that like button for good luck on all of your bets, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description to check out stumpthespread.com, and we will see you guys tomorrow for a video breaking down the full NFL slate. Also, click the video that's about to pop up right here, and you can go over and see our leans on the NBA Cup games here for Saturday night.